Yo, what's good? It's your man, 100 Grand Ross with The Rock Never Stops. It's time for us to have the James Wiseman discussion for Detroit Pistons fans. If you enjoyed the video, smash the like button for me, hit subscribe and the bell for notifications. And as always, get back to me in the comment section so we could chop it up there. Look, James Wiseman has put together a string of really impressive games. Yes, they've come in a losing effort. Yes, they've come in blowouts. But it's been impressive nonetheless. And even including Jalen Duren this season, the center position has been pretty much unspectacular. In fact, the front court positions, outside of maybe Bojan Bogdanovic and the early showings from Asar Thompson, have been largely unspectacular. And so to see stats like James Wiseman is putting up, even in the effort or the outcome that we're seeing from the team, I think we have to take a look at it. We have to begin to ask ourselves, where does he now shift himself in terms of the pecking order of this front court? Now, we know that in the next couple of months, we're going to have the trade deadline coming up. I'm pretty sure Troy Weaver and his assistant, Dwayne Casey, are going to start taking a look at moving pieces within this roster. And I think a lot of us have a lot of ideas of where we think some of these individuals should land. We understand that there's just far too many players to try to develop. We understand that the core pieces need more veteran leadership and consistency around them in order to mask some of their learning curve and developmental needs. And I think that that's coming. And so when we see different players have the opportunity to start the season, whether it's Jalen Duren, right, who's had some really nice moments, and yet he's also had a lot of meh moments, right? A lot of games where you're just like, I really didn't feel him in the way that I had hoped to, whether it was on the boards, whether it was being consistent scoring on the interior. It's just been unspectacular. And so then when I think about, well, let's look at Isaiah Stewart. I was at least impressed at the beginning of the season with Isaiah Stewart's energy and his three-point shooting. I mean, it was above league average, right? But many times he was taking threes sometimes too early in the shot clock. I think that he's had a hard time gauging what a quality three looks like for him within the offensive scheme. And I think some of that has also been due to the lack of veteran leadership and guys who know how to manage the game outside of a Cade Cunningham and Killian Hayes at times. And with all the turnovers, it was just hard to create any type of offensive consistency. But as a result, I would say in the last 10 games, Isaiah Stewart has largely slowed down in terms of his volume of three-point shooting, which has made his offense a little bit less spectacular, a little bit less, a little bit less of a punch. And when you start for an NBA team, you need to have a punch. You need to be somebody who brings something of significance that is by far better than what usually anyone else in the NBA offers. Now, whether that's rebounding, whether that's spectacular defense and rim protection, whether that's offensive skills, shooting, scoring on the interior, right? You need to bring something that brings a punch. In the last 10 games, Isaiah Stewart has just not brought a punch. Then we look at Marvin Bagley III. He's actually had a lot of pop on offense. You see the springiness, you see the touch, you see his ability to finish around the rim, you see his ability to attack the rim off the dribble, and he's done far better job with gauging distance in terms of not running into the help, not trying to squeeze between defenders, but finding that open area around the rim and finishing effectively. And I would have to say, for as good as he's looked offensively, he's looked just as bad defensively. And so when we look at the first three potential centers for the Detroit Pistons, it's been unspectacular or kind of a yo-yo of just high on one side, low on the other. And then we get to James Wiseman, who started off the season on the bench getting a whole bunch of DNPs or barely playing a few minutes at the end of games. But the past few games with Jalen Duren out and Isaiah Stewart struggling. And I think at first Marvin Bagley III was out as well. James Wiseman received significant minutes. And in those minutes, he has produced. And when I say produced, let me break down a little bit what I saw. One, on the offensive end, great touch around the rim, soft hands, catching lobs and dump offs. He is above average pick and roll lob threat. He has gravity when he's going to the rim and he's coming off that pick and he's diving to the rim. Guys have to pay attention to him. His size alone at 7'1" demands being paid attention to. His athleticism has been on full display. His reach, his ability to climb to that kind of second tier of height above the rim has allowed for Cade Cunningham and Killian Hayes and even Marcus Sasser to be able to utilize that lob threat to create openings for themselves or to get the easy assists. It's also been able to suck in defense, which has allowed for more perimeter shooting. Then we look at his post-ups. He's been patient. He hasn't just been camping out of the rim, looking to get the ball. If he doesn't get it, he pops back out. He sets solid screens. He isn't the best screen setter, but he's no longer the worst screen setter. And I would have to say that guys are actually having to fight to get around him. He looks stronger. He looks a little bit more definitive with his movements. And I wouldn't be shocked if he continues to get 20-plus minutes a game that we don't start seeing that jump shot come back because his free throw shooting has been really good for a center. And he shows great touch. And we already know he has the range to go out to the three-point line. We know he has the mid-range. We know he has that. But I love his control to stick to what he does best or what is most effective before he starts trying to do the things that show everything that he can do in his bag. And so then when we look at the defensive side of things, he is a presence. He is legit 7'1". He is a center. When he stood next to Joel Embiid, he looks like an opposing center that Joel Embiid has to acknowledge. Now, even though no one's as strong as Embiid, we get that. But when Embiid has to look at him, when Giannis Antetokounmpo has to look at him and see somebody just as big as he is, or in Giannis's case, a little bit taller, but maybe not as strong, right? But someone just as big as him, it creates a dynamic where they no longer face the rim, Joel Embiid, Giannis, and just see wide open daylight. They see somebody they're going to have to maneuver around, and that has allowed the Detroit Pistons to have that extra second, that extra dribble that Embiid and Giannis have to take in order to get their defense in order to try to resist. And that makes a big difference because when you see somebody like Isaiah Stewart at 6'10" on a good day, right, who's then sitting in front of Embiid, Embiid doesn't even see him. Giannis doesn't even see him. They're looking right over the top. Defenses don't even see anybody on the interior. And when it comes to rebounding, well, Duren is probably the best rebounder, and Bagley's not bad. And I don't think any of them has really stood out in terms of being a volume rebounder. But James Wiseman has been able to rebound at least an average level. He might be the worst rebounder of the group, but he's been at least average enough in order to make sure that he's doing his job. But really what this conversation is about is, does he continue to get minutes? Does he start eating into the minutes of guys like Marvin Bagley III and Isaiah Stewart, especially when Duren eventually comes back? How do we begin to distribute those minutes? Because what Wiseman is doing is not just promising. It's actually something to be well aware of the rest of the league sees as well. Because they have to be thinking, he's figuring it out. And big men with his size and agility and athleticism and touch do not come around often. And the league is getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And so you need size. And so before they start contemplating if they're going to re-sign him at the end of the season, are they going to trade him before the deadline? They're going to need to see more of what he's got or make a decision of who is going to be the keepers and who is potentially going to be leaving. I think Personally, I'd rather have Wiseman over Bagley. And I'd like to see Wiseman in that starting lineup at least once or twice before Duren gets back. Because like I said, Isaiah Stewart has been unspectacular. He hasn't proven to me to say, hey, I deserve this spot. I'm going to bring a punch that no one else can bring. Whether it's been energy, whether it's been rebounding, whether it's been great defense and always being in the right position, he just hasn't shown me enough. But at the end of the day, I want to know what you all think. Does Wiseman get an opportunity to start before Duren comes back? Do you think Bagley or Isaiah Stewart is actually playing better? Let me know what you think in the comments section. We're going to chop it up there. If you enjoyed the video, smash the like button for me, hit subscribe and the bell for notifications. Peace.